Like, share and subscribe pleaser for more interesting stories. The rain had just stopped, leaving the streets slick and gleaming under the dim orange glow of the street lamps. Lila pulled her coat tighter around her shoulders, the chill seeping through her sweater as she wandered down the narrow side street. She loved these hidden corners of the city, the ones where the neon signs faded, and time felt slower, almost forgotten. It was there, tucked between a shuttered bookstore and a tiny coffee shop, that she noticed the antique shop. Its windows were fogged with dust and condensation, and the old wooden sign creaked in the evening breeze. Eldritch Curiosities. Curiosity tugged at her like a hand she couldn't resist. She pushed the heavy door open, and a bell tinkled somewhere above her head. The air smelled of aged wood, candle wax, and a faint trace of something floral she couldn't name. Shelves stretched toward the ceiling, crowded with relics. Porcelain dolls with glassy eyes, stacks of yellowed letters tied with twine, tarnished silver candelabras. Her eyes were drawn forward, past the clutter, to a large mirror leaning against the far wall. Its frame was carved with twisting vines and delicate flowers, now dulled with dust and age. "Ah, I see you've found it," a voice croaked. Lila jumped and turned to see an old man behind a counter, his eyes sharp beneath bushy gray brows. "Be careful with that one, young lady. Not everything that shines wishes to be touched." Lila smiled politely, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "It's just a mirror," she said lightly, though her stomach had already fluttered. How dangerous could it be? The shopkeeper's lips curled into a thin, knowing smile. Dangerous? Perhaps. Or perhaps, it will show you more than you wish to see. Lila chuckled nervously and stepped closer to the mirror, running her fingertips over the dusty glass. She could see her reflection, faint and distorted in the dim light, but something about it felt alive, as if it were waiting for her. Her heart beat faster. Little did she know this was no ordinary reflection, and the mirror was about to pull her into a world she couldn't yet imagine. Lila struggled up the narrow staircase to her apartment, the mirror wrapped in an old bedsheet and balanced awkwardly against her shoulder. The building groaned with every step, as if protesting the new weight she was bringing inside. By the time she reached her door, her arms ached, but her excitement pushed her forward. Her apartment was small, one room, a narrow kitchen, and a single window overlooking the restless city. Outside, traffic hummed and distant music floated up from a roadside bar. Inside, the air felt still, expectant. She leaned the mirror against the wall near her bed and carefully pulled away the sheet. Her breath caught. The mirror was even more beautiful in proper light. The carved frame seemed to glow softly, the vines and flowers appearing almost alive. Lila stepped closer, heart pounding, and looked at her reflection. At first it was normal, tired eyes, loose hair, the faint crease between her brows from a long day. Then something shifted. Her skin looked smoother, brighter. The dullness she'd carried for weeks melted away. Her eyes appeared wider, clearer, as if someone had turned up the light inside them. Lila leaned in, touching her cheek. "Is this me?" she whispered. The reflection smiled back, perfectly timed, perfectly confident. A warm thrill spread through her chest. She stood taller without realizing it, rolling her shoulders back, lifting her chin. For the first time in a long while, she didn't see flaws. She saw possibility, power, beauty that felt effortless and undeniable. Lila laughed softly, spinning once in front of the mirror. "Wow," she murmured, almost giddy. Maybe that old man was wrong. But as she turned away, a strange sensation crawled up her spine, like unseen eyes following her. She glanced back. For just a heartbeat, the reflection lingered after she stopped moving, its smile a fraction too slow to fade. Lila frowned, then shook her head. "You're tired," she told herself, switching off the lamp. In the darkness, the mirror caught the moonlight and gleamed softly, waiting for her to look again. The next few days passed quietly, almost too quietly. Lila went about her routine morning, buses groaning through traffic, the smell of roasted corn drifting from the street vendors below her office, the familiar rhythm of the city wrapping around her like a worn blanket. Yet something felt shifted. Each morning she stood before the mirror while tying her hair or smoothing her blouse. The glow was still there. Her skin looked fresh even on sleepless nights, her eyes brighter than they had any right to be. Compliments followed her now, small ones from coworkers, lingering looks from strangers. It should have thrilled her. Instead, a thin thread of unease tugged at her chest. One evening, as rain tapped softly against her window, Lila leaned toward the mirror to remove her earrings. She tilted her head to the left. Her reflection tilted a moment later. Lila froze. The delay was barely noticeable, less than a blink, but enough to make her stomach tighten. She straightened quickly. The reflection followed perfectly this time. "You're imagining things," she muttered, rubbing her temples. Later that night, brushing her teeth, she raised her hand. The reflection's hand rose too, but not quite in sync. A cold shiver slid down her spine. She stared harder, daring the glass to betray her again. Nothing. Just her face, calm and obedient, staring back. She laughed softly, though the sound came out thin. "I need sleep," she said to the empty room. Long hours, too much screen time, too many late nights. That had to be it. Still, as she crawled into bed, she felt an odd pressure, like the mirror was watching even when her back was turned. She pulled the blanket higher, facing the wall. Behind her, the mirror stood silently in the dim room, catching fragments of streetlight and shadow. And for the first time, Lila sensed it clearly. Something wasn't wrong yet, but something was learning her. It happened close to midnight, when the city outside had finally begun to quiet. The usual horns and shouting had faded into a distant hum, replaced by the occasional bark of a stray dog and the whisper of wind against the window. Lila stood alone in her room, the only light coming from a small table lamp beside the mirror. She hadn't planned to look, but something pulled her there, the same silent pull she'd felt all day. She leaned closer to the glass, studying her face. The glow was still there. Smooth skin, sharp features, eyes reflecting the warm light like polished stones. Her heart beat faster, equal parts comforted and unsettled. Then she smiled. Her reflection did not. For a split second, no longer than a breath, one side of the face in the mirror went wrong. The smile vanished. One eye darkened, empty like a hollow socket swallowing the light. It wasn't blood or gore. It was worse. It was absence. Lila gasped. "What?" The word never finished. The reflection snapped back into place, perfect and whole, as if nothing had happened. Two eyes. A gentle smile. Calm. Obedient. Lila screamed. She stumbled backward, crashing into the edge of the bed. Her lamp rattled, shadows leaping wildly across the walls. Her chest burned as she fought for air, her hands shaking so badly she had to grip the mattress to stay upright. "No. No, no, no," she whispered, tears blurring her vision. She looked away, pressed her palms to her face, counting her breaths. No, 3. Slowly, against every instinct, she looked again. The mirror showed her exactly as she should be. Normal. Human. Afraid. Her reflection stared back silently, eyes too steady, smile gone. Lila turned away and dragged a cloth over the mirror, heart pounding. As she curled into bed, the city noises crept back in, but they offered no comfort. Somewhere beneath the cloth, the mirror waited. And Lila knew deep in her bones that this wasn't a trick of tired eyes. It was a warning. Sleep abandoned Lila that night. The city outside her window stirred awake before she ever closed her eyes. Early buses coughing to life, the distant call of a street hawker advertising fresh bread. With dark circles beneath her glowing eyes, she sat at her small kitchen table, laptop open, fingers trembling over the keys. She typed antique mirror strange reflection, then reflection lagging folklore, then mirror missing face legend. Page after page loaded, forums filled with half-jokes and superstition, until one phrase repeated often enough to make her stomach tighten. Soul-swallowing mirrors. Her throat went dry. Old blogs spoke of mirrors that fed on attention, that learned faces, that slowly replaced what they reflected. One article mentioned a coastal village where mirrors were once covered at night, especially after funerals, so wandering spirits wouldn't mistake glass for water and slip inside. Lila glanced toward her bedroom door, imagining the mirror standing there in the dark, listening. She scrolled deeper and found a name. Professor Adebayo, a local historian who specialized in oral myths and forgotten urban legends. Without thinking too much, she emailed him. To her surprise, a reply came within minutes. If you own such a mirror, stop using it. Do not look into it again. Come see me. By late afternoon, Lila found herself in a quiet neighborhood far from the city's noise. Professor Adebayo's office smelled of old paper and incense. Shelves sagged under the weight of books. The man himself studied her carefully, his eyes lingering on her face longer than was polite. "You've been using the mirror," he said finally. Lila nodded. "It shows me things." He sighed deeply. "Mirrors like that don't steal your face," he said softly. "They steal your attention first, then your presence. And if you keep looking," he paused, "they don't need permission after that." Her chest tightened. "Can it be stopped?" He looked away. "Only if you stop feeding it." Lila left. His final words followed her down the path like a shadow. Some mirrors don't break easily. They cling. That night, walking home, she felt the pull again, stronger than before. Lila told herself she would stop looking. She even meant it at first. But the mirror had become impossible to ignore, like a quiet presence breathing in the corner of her room. Every time she passed it, she felt that familiar tug behind her ribs, a gentle insistence that grew stronger with each hour. By the third night she gave in. She stood before it long after the city lights outside had dimmed, traffic thinning into distant murmurs. The mirror welcomed her with that same soft glow, smoothing her skin, sharpening her eyes, making her look chosen. Time slipped away unnoticed. 1 minute she was adjusting her hair, the next her legs ached from standing. "Just one more look," she whispered. Her phone buzzed on the bed. A message from Maya. "You've been quiet. Everything okay?" Lila glanced at the screen, then back at the mirror. Her reflection's eyes seemed brighter than the message. She replied hours later with a simple "I'm fine." Days passed like this. At work, she drifted through meetings, nodding without listening. At lunch her friends spoke, but their voices felt far away, muffled like sound underwater. "You're not really here anymore," one of them joked, snapping fingers in front of her face. Lila forced a laugh, but her thoughts were already racing home, to the mirror, to that feeling of being seen. At night she sat cross-legged on the floor staring. Sometimes she spoke to her reflection, telling it things she'd never told anyone. Her fears, her dreams. The reflection listened perfectly, unblinking, never interrupting. Her world began to shrink. Friends' calls, laughter fading into background noise. All that mattered was the glass and the woman inside it. And somewhere between midnight and dawn, Lila realized something terrifying. She wasn't choosing to look anymore. The mirror was calling. Lila noticed it on a quiet afternoon, when the sky outside hung low and gray and the city felt strangely hushed. She stood before the mirror, arms folded, studying her face the way she had done 100 times before. Something was missing. She lifted her right hand. In the mirror her hand rose, but the fingers blurred at the edges, thinning like smoke. Lila's breath caught. She wiggled her fingers. The reflection lagged, then softened, as if the hand were dissolving into the glass. "No," she whispered, stepping closer. Her reflection stared back, calm, almost patient. But one eye, just one, dimmed slightly like a candle losing air. The light drained from it, leaving a hollow shadow where warmth had been. Lila screamed. She grabbed a blanket and threw it over the mirror, backing away until her shoulders hit the wall. Her heart hammered so hard it hurt. "I won't look," she said aloud, voice shaking. "I'm done. You hear me? I'm done." But the room felt wrong without the mirror uncovered. Too quiet, too empty. The silence pressed against her ears. Her skin prickled, as entwined as if she were being watched from behind the cloth. She turned away and fled into the kitchen, splashing cold water on her face. Her reflection in the tap's chrome surface looked normal, whole, human. Relief flooded her, until she noticed something else. Her smile faded there too, slowly, like it was being erased. She stumbled back, knocking over a chair. "Stop," she cried. "Please stop." The blanket behind her slipped. Just enough. She caught a glimpse of the mirror again, and this time her reflection had no expression at all. No fear. No panic. Only hunger. Lila collapsed to the floor, sobbing, realizing the truth too late. The mirror wasn't changing her reflection. It was learning which parts to take. And as night fell outside her window, she understood something even worse. She couldn't escape it anymore. Lila stopped answering her phone. Messages stacked up. Missed calls, worried voice notes, knocks on her door she pretended not to hear. The world outside continued without her. Morning traffic roared, neighbors argued, vendors shouted prices from the street below. But inside her apartment, time felt thick and unmoving, like the air before a storm. She avoided the mirror in her room, but it didn't matter anymore. Reflections followed her. In the bathroom, the small mirror above the sink shimmered strangely, showing the tiled wall behind her but not her face. She waved a hand in front of it. Nothing. Her chest tightened. "No, no, I'm here," she whispered, pressing her fingers against the glass. Cold. Solid. Empty. She staggered back and caught her reflection in the dark screen of her phone. Only half of it this time. One eye. One cheek. The rest swallowed by shadow. Lila dropped the phone as if it had burned her. Panic clawed at her throat. She covered every reflective surface she could find. Mirrors, windows, polished metal. Draping scarves and towels until her apartment looked like a place in mourning. Still faint glimmers leaked through the fabric, pulses of soft light breathing beneath the cloth. "I won't let you take me," she said, pacing, nails digging into her palms. "I'm still here. I'm real." But doubt crept in. She stood before the covered mirror and spoke her own name out loud, again and again, as if afraid it might slip away if she stopped saying it. Her voice sounded thinner each time. That night, as rain lashed the windows, she glimpsed herself reflected in the glass for a heartbeat, and nearly screamed. Her outline was fading. Not gone. Fading. Lila slid down the wall, sobbing, arms wrapped tightly around herself. She understood now. This wasn't about beauty or vanity anymore. It was about existence. And if she didn't face the mirror soon, there would be nothing left of her to save. The cloth slid from the mirror and pooled at Lila's feet like a fallen shroud. The room seemed to inhale. Moonlight spilled through the window, striking the glass, and the mirror awakened, its surface rippling softly, as though water lay trapped beneath it. Lila stepped forward on trembling legs. What stared back at her was not fully her anymore. Her reflection flickered, edges blurred, eyes too bright, smile lagging half a breath behind. "Give it back," Lila whispered, then shouted, her voice cracking. "You took pieces of me. My face, my life." The reflection tilted its head in a way Lila did not. "You offered them," the mirror replied, not in sound but in a voice that bloomed inside her skull. Smooth. Patient. Ancient. Lila clutched her chest. "I didn't ask for this." "No one ever does," the voice murmured. "They only ask to be more." The mirror's surface darkened, revealing images. Lila admiring herself, smiling longer than necessary, returning again and again. Each moment glowed then hollowed out, leaving shadows behind her eyes. "I feed on what you polish," the mirror continued. "Vanity. Hunger. The fear of being unseen. Confidence is the sweetest because once it's gone, only emptiness remains." Tears streamed down Lila's face. "So what happens to me?" The reflection leaned closer, its mouth stretching into a smile Lila no longer recognized. "You become light without weight, a shape without substance, a memory trapped in glass." The floor creaked beneath her as she staggered back. Outside, the city had gone unnaturally quiet, as if even the world was listening. Lila wiped her tears, her hands shaking, but her voice steadied. "Then you won't take anything else." The mirror pulsed, the light inside it flaring. Anticipation or warning, she couldn't tell. "Every mirror demands a choice," the voice whispered. "And every choice demands a loss." Lila took a step forward. This time not to admire but to fight. The room darkened and the glass began to gel. Lila's hands closed around the iron lamp beside her bed, its weight dragging her arms down like doubt. The mirror pulsed brighter, the air buzzing, whispering her name in fragments. "Lila." "No more," she said, her voice hoarse but steady. She swung. The impact shattered the silence first, then the glass. The mirror screamed, not aloud but in her bones, as cracks spidered across its surface. Light spilled out violently, flooding the room with distorted reflections. 100 versions of Lila, each thinner, emptier, fading. She struck again. The mirror collapsed inward, folding like broken water, shards dissolving into ash before they hit the floor. The whispers cut off mid-breath. The room fell still. Lila dropped the lamp and sank to her knees, gasping. Her reflection wavered in the darkened window across the room. She looked. She was whole, pale, exhausted, eyes ringed with shadow. Her beauty no longer glowed unnaturally. It was quiet now, imperfect, human. When she raised her hand, the reflection followed without delay. She pressed her palm to the glass and felt the cold ground her. A weak laugh escaped her lips, turning into tears. "This is enough," she whispered. Dawn crept in slowly, painting the city rooftops in soft gold. Somewhere below, a kettle whistled. A bicycle bell rang, life stitching itself back together. Lila wrapped the remaining cloth around the mirror's empty frame and carried it up to the attic, sealing it inside an old wooden chest, locking it beneath years of dust and silence. When she returned, she avoided mirrors, not out of fear but respect. Later, as sunlight filled her room, Lila caught her reflection again in the window. She stood straighter this time, not searching for perfection, just presence. The hunger was gone, but the lesson remained, etched deeper than glass, waiting to be remembered whenever she forgot that being whole mattered more than being admired. Lila sat on the balcony as the late afternoon sun painted the city in warm amber. Below, the streets hummed with life, vendors calling out prices for oranges and bread, children chasing one another past cracked sidewalks, motorcycles weaving through traffic like water. She breathed deeply, letting the ordinary chaos of the world remind her she still belonged to it. The mirror in the attic, heavy and silent, weighed on her mind but no longer pulled at her. Its hunger had been contained for now. She ran her fingers along the railing, feeling the texture of chipped paint beneath her skin. "I almost forgot what it feels like to just be me," she murmured to herself. Her reflection glimmered in the window behind her. Whole, imperfect, human. No unnatural glow, no hollowed eyes. She smiled faintly, a quiet, exhausted triumph. Her phone buzzed, breaking the moment. A notification from a friend. "Hey, we miss you at lunch." She paused, considered ignoring it, then replied with a simple, "I'll come. Thanks." The small gesture felt monumental. It reminded her that self-worth was not found in perfect skin, polished hair, or admiring glances. It lived in presence, in choice, in showing up for herself and for others. As the sun dipped lower, painting streaks of pink across the sky, Lila's eyes wandered to the street below. A small antique shop she had passed countless times caught her attention. In the window, a figure lingered, staring intently at an ornate mirror. A chill ran down her spine. She had learned her lesson, but the world had not changed. The danger still waited, patient, cunning. Lila inhaled deeply and whispered, more to herself than anyone else, "Be careful where you let your reflection lead you." The city carried on, unaware of the quiet battle fought inside one apartment, or of the shadows still lingering, waiting for the next curious gaze. And somewhere the mirror waited, hungry again.